Hey guys, welcome back to an episode of Mac's Workshop. We're actually here outside of the workshop. Today, I've been tinkering with this 7020 and I wanted to show you guys something that might help you guys in the future diagnosing some problems with your small gas engine, the newer ones. So, this rig here has got a CH20 Kohler in it, and these carburetors on these CH20s have a fuel shutoff solenoid built onto the carburetor, which is supposed to shut the fuel off to stop it from doing like a backfire or whatever. So I ran into a problem where it was faulty and it was stopping the engine from getting fuel and it would not run. So let me just try to describe my problem a little bit further here. Alright, so the 7020, like I said, has a Kohler CH20 gas engine, 2-cylinder, 640 cc, something like that, V-twin. It's a newer style engine. A lot of these newer style engines you'll run into, they have what's called a fuel shutoff solenoid or an anti-backfire solenoid or something. It's basically a little fuel shutoff that shuts the fuel off going to the carburetor when you turn the key off, so that allegedly it doesn't backfire or whatever. I'm not sure if that actually works like that or not, but basically it shuts the fuel off going to the engine. So what I ran into with the 7020, it wasn't getting fuel. So I replaced the pump on it, and I assumed that would fix it, which it kind of did. I think basically my problem was I was fighting several different problems at the same time. I had a failing fuel pump, and at the same time I was fighting with this fuel solenoid thing. And I really didn't suspect anything to be going wrong with the carburetor itself, because the carburetor itself was actually a brand new aftermarket unit made in China, but it was still a brand new aftermarket unit, so I didn't suspect the carburetor at all at first. So I got my fuel pump replaced. It was like a $200 fuel pump, because these CH20s, like on the 7020, the fuel pump is a mechanical pump, and it's built into the top of one of the valve covers. So they only sell it in an entire assembly. They don't sell it in individual components. You have to buy the entire valve cover with the fuel pump and everything. It was like $200 Canadian to replace that. So I replaced it. It needed to be replaced anyway. It was starting to leak fuel down into the engine, and I was having fuel pumping issues as well. So it had to get replaced, so I replaced it. But you may not run into that. You might have fuel issues, and it might not be the pump. So, and there is other options too, other than replacing it. You can switch over to a vacuum style pump, which is much cheaper, or even an electric pump, which would be much cheaper and more reliable. But for me, for whatever reason, for better or worse, I like to have the original setup, the way it came from the factory. That's how I wanted it on that particular tractor anyway. So anyway, moving on. I had it working last night. It took a while to get it going. I don't really know why. I guess maybe because the fuel shutoff wasn't working right away. It was working intermittently, which is, as you guys know, one of the worst problems to try and diagnose is an intermittent problem, where sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And it always seems like when you're trying to test it, that's when it's working. And then when you go to use it, then it stops working. So anyway, it was hard to get the pump primed, I thought, last night, but apparently it was just the carburetor was not allowing fuel to run through it because of this fuel shutoff, I would say, most likely. So anyway, I got it going last night. It ran, it coughed maybe once or twice while I was using it. I used it for probably an hour and a half, 2 hours maybe. Not a hiccup, no problem. Parked it in the garage overnight. Started up the next morning, it was fine. I ran it for maybe half an hour, then I started running into trouble. It would be just running wide open, everything going great, and it would just shut off out of nowhere. And You know, I got the fuel filter on the side of the 7020 is a clear filter. You can see through it, so I can see the fuel in the filter. So I know there's fuel at least there. So I'm like, well, what the heck's going on? So I pull the fuel line off of the outlet side of the pump, and I turn the key over a bit, and the engine turns over, actuates the mechanical pump, of course, and it spits fuel out. So I know the pump is working. It's a brand new pump, so I expected it to work. But so I checked for blockages in the line going from the pump to the carburetor. That was all fine. So I know for a fact there's fuel getting to the carburetor. So everything back of that had been eliminated at that point. So, you know, before that I was thinking, well, is there a blockage in the line from the tank to the pump, or is there a restriction somewhere where I have my fuel shut off, or is that filter causing some sort of a restriction or whatever? But I was able to eliminate all that. And I knew that I had fuel going directly to the carburetor. Now, other thing I was trying to figure out was if I had spark, because I knew I had fuel going to the carburetor. So I was like, well, maybe one of these safety switches that are on the tractor are acting up and it's cutting spark on me. But, you know, the tractor wouldn't start. It would turn over and over and over. And I'd try to check for spark, and sure enough, there's spark. And there's fuel going to the carburetor, so I'm like, what the heck is going on with this thing? So anyway, I do a little bit of research on the computer. I had this thing in the back of my mind anyway. I knew it was there because I had replaced the carburetor a few months back, and I remember having to plug it in, and I seen it. This fuel shutoff thing, which is right here in my hand. I've been holding it this whole time. Come on, ignore my face, just focus on that now. Fancy camera. So anyway, all this is a little 12-volt solenoid that turns the fuel on and off in the carburetor, basically. So I had the one off the old carburetor, so I tested it here on the bench. I put 12-volt power to it, it clicked when you put 12 volts on it. I went out to the 7020, I took it off that, I swapped them. I thought, yeah, this is going to work, this is going to be it. Still nothing, didn't work. So I'm not really sure why. It was clicking, still wouldn't start. So I was like, well, what the heck? So I tried the old one, which is actually this one in my hand. This is the one off the new carburetor. I have the old one on the tractor now. Tried it on the bench. I got fiddling with it a bit, and at first it didn't click, then it started clicking. So I mean, I'm not sure. It might have been just a bad connection or something, I don't know. But anyway, at this point I have fuel going to the carburetor, and I do have now at this point a fuel shut off that did seem to be working. But so my next move was to bypass that solenoid altogether. So my plan was there to cut the plunger off, and I'll show you guys right here in this one. So you can see the plunger that sticks up. That's what shuts the fuel off in the carburetor. So I took a pair of snips and I just snipped it right off on the other one. Not that one, obviously, that one's still there. So I snipped it off on the old solenoid, put it back on the carburetor. Damn thing fired right up. So either the old plunger wasn't compatible with the new carburetor, which it shouldn't have been because it was a direct replacement. It should have been fine, but it worked afterwards, or there was another problem. So I'm not sure which was which, but anyway, a little bit more digging on the tractor. I had the seat up. Every other time when I was trying to start the tractor before, I had the seat down like as if you were sitting on it. This last time I tried it, the seat was tilted up because I had all my tools laying on top of the gas tank there. So I had the seat up and it fired right up. So then I go put the seat down and she starts to quit again. So I'm like, This is ridiculous. What's going on here? Well, what was going on after all this was the tractor originally had an operator presence switch in the seat. Okay, so the seat that I have on it now is like the fourth seat that's been on that tractor. So the original seat with that operator presence switch is long gone. Who knows where that's at? And the wires have been disconnected. Believe it or not, I wanted to actually replace that operator presence switch because I like to have everything present and working on the tractor. I think the price on it was like $300 or $400. So I was like, well, that ain't gonna happen. So anyway, I just left it as is. So all it was there was two like spade terminals basically, and they were connected together. And they're just there under the seat, not wrapped in electrical tape or anything like that. And I never put any thought into them. They'd been disconnected before and connected, and it never seemed to make any difference as far as the tractor running or not. So I just left them as is. But it turns out when I had more tools in my little toolbox tray under the seat, they touched those two wires and they grounded out. Now, those two wires can be apart or they can be touching together, and it makes no difference to the tractor whatsoever. But as soon as you ground those two wires, it'll shut the tractor off. So my best guess is that I probably did have, well, to start off with, I probably did have an issue with the fuel pump because I know for a fact it was dumping fuel into the oil. And that's what happens when they start to go bad. The diaphragm and the fuel pump breaks, and it starts pissing fuel down on top of the valves, and it runs down into the engine, into the oil. So I did need a new fuel pump. I just didn't need it for the reasons I thought, really. It was still pumping fuel half decently. So then I moved on to the carburetor, which I'd replaced before because it was running rich. But then I ran into that fuel solenoid, which I thought was the problem, but it turns out that maybe it wasn't the problem, but maybe it was. Who knows? It was kind of an intermittent thing. I don't think that the operator safety switch was the problem all along. So, you know, that fuel solenoid might have been an intermittent problem, or it might not have been. Who knows? It's bypassed now, so it's not going to be a problem anymore. But, you know, the third and final problem, I guess, was that operator safety switch that had been bypassed at some point. So, in conclusion, I guess, if you have a problem with your tractor, make sure that you're checking fuel and spark at all times, because you never know which is which. I mean, with this one, sometimes it was a fuel problem, sometimes it was a spark problem. I could never really tell. I thought that it was fuel the whole time and went with it, but here in the end it was cutting spark. So I don't know. So, and yeah, if you have fuel going to your carburetor and you know you have spark, watch out for that fuel solenoid, because that could be another issue that you run into with it cutting fuel, because it doesn't let fuel flow to the carburetor. And that's the other thing too. That's what was confusing me so much. So earlier today I was trying it. Okay, it quit, and I wanted to get it going again to try and get it closer to the shop. And I knew I was having this problem where it would quit running out of nowhere, and then if I let it sit for 15, 20 minutes and went back to it, it would fire back up again, and I would get another 5-10 minutes out of it. So I was like, well, like, what's going on, right? So I went back to it, I started it up, I ran it for 10 minutes, it quit, and then I left it for 15, 20 minutes, and I came back, and this time when I came back, it wouldn't run right away. I choked it a bit, throttle was on about idle, just slowly, like even less than usual idle speed. It was running even lower than that, like maybe like 400 RPM, just enough to barely keep going. And that made me think, well, obviously it's getting spark to, you know, at least one cylinder. It'd be getting spark because it has to have spark to fire off that fuel. So it has to be starving for fuel. So at that particular time, there's no way the problem could have been that operator presence switch, because if that was the case, there'd be no spark at all. In that case, it would have had to have been the fuel shutoff solenoid. So anyway, I guess the moral of the story here is you can see how frustrating it can be dealing with multiple problems, intermittent problems, multiple problems that are all intermittent. And anyway, I'm hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood, hopefully I have that tractor fixed now. We're going to run it through the gears a little bit here and make sure she's functioning, but I think I've got her solved now. I know I won't have any more trouble with that shut off anyway, and I'll wrap up those leads good in the operator presence switch area, so hopefully that'll fix that. So anyway, that's about all I have to say, guys. I know I haven't been doing many Max Workshop videos, but I thought I'd throw this one in here today anyway. I'm not sure what we're going to do through the winter here. I still have the 1650 kind of going on. I moved over to my uncle's shop. I got something else cooking in my own workshop, which I decided I think I'm going to post it on the main Mac Farms channel, just because like I created the Max Workshop channel as kind of a way to funnel off some of the smaller projects, like the working on lawn tractors and stuff like that, that people really weren't interested in on the Mac Farms channel. But the new project, you guys know what it is. It's a 1394 case farm tractor. So I think what we're going to do is when we're working on that this winter, we're going to post that on the Mac Farms channel, the main channel, to keep the content going through on that channel through the winter. And if I come across anything else that's kind of smaller projecty stuff, like, I mean, I got the Cub Cadet is here, and the 444 is here, and you know, the 7020 stuff. I'll keep posting that on the Max Workshop channel, but I think the project in my main shop up there, that's going to be on the main Mac Farms channel through the winter. So anyway, we'll see you in the next one, wherever that is. I think it's probably been like 6 months since the last video, but we'll see you in the next one, guys. Thanks for watching. Alright guys, she seems to be working pretty good, so I'm pleased with that. I'll see you in the next one.